Hey there, colleague. How in the world are you doing? Hope that you're well. This is going to be the second in a series of videos where I just share what we did in my class with pop-up debate. So in my ninth grade world history class, we're going to be doing a series of pop-up debates this school year. And I just decided, because I haven't before, I'm going to kind of document the types of things that are happening, the things that I'm thinking about as I build out our sequence of pop-up debates as we go through our world history class. And the purpose of this is not so much for you to, lockstep follow behind me. I don't think that's useful for you or me, or really there's no purpose there. The purpose is for you to just see someone thinking out loud, see the types of very simple moves that someone can use to make these pop-up debates really special. And I think that, I know that I've seen people use pop-up debates in all different types of content areas, all different types of grade levels. So I don't have like expertise bringing this into a science class or math class or anything like that, but I've seen people that have. And if you're doing something special with pop-up debates, please share in the comments of these videos, or just even if you're just trying it, share in the comments of the videos, because I saw some of you say that with the first video in the series, and I thought that's pretty sweet. That's great. That's kind of why I made these, is just encourage you to do it, because typically it's something that kids really can gain a lot of benefits from. So it's kind of our video outline I'll be walking through. I got actually some classroom clips today, which is cool, of me teaching. I don't have student permission slips for video yet, and even if I did, I wouldn't videotape them because it's just too early to add that layer. But I want to begin by talking about just a quick overview of what is this strategy of pop-up debates. So it's incredibly simple. I'll discuss it at length in the argument chapter of these 6 things. But really, with this poster, you can kind of see the gist. Everyone talks at least once. No one talks more than twice, unless I say otherwise. This is meant to make participation, like kids don't have to think about whether they're going to participate. The mandatory participation instead enables them to just think about when they're going to participate. And also, my more outspoken students, they don't have the ability to monopolize the floor time, the air time, with the 2x max. And the pop-up comes from they just stand up at their seats. And standing up is not an optional thing. So this year I actually didn't have much pushback with the standing up. I don't know if I'd ever remind anyone to stand up. But some years, the first few debates, you have to say, oh, remember, you stand up to speak. So I mean, we're doing a lot of things with this. This is really, it's really, though, it's like a box of Legos that I'm giving you, that I'm giving myself, without really much instructions. So if you're a great Lego builder, you can build amazing things with a box of Legos with no instructions. But if you're not going to build as amazing of things. But anyone can build something with a box of Legos. So I think that's what pop-up debate is. It's just it's a structure for having whole class discussion. And what I'm going to start to focus on in these videos is just how my students are increasing in these different 5 key beliefs that I write about in my more recent book, because I think pop-up debate is a great way to cultivate student motivation across these different areas. So I'm going to try to remember that too as we advance through the video. So first, I want to just give the prompt of the debate, and then what the context was, and then I'm going to show you the first couple of classroom clips. And what I hope to examine here is I want you to see in all my debates, there's really not a way for kids to completely fail, because I'm setting them up with pre-work, that gives them something to go off of. Even if they really don't feel strong on a topic, by the end of our pre-work, they will have strength in a topic. So for this pop-up debate, our prompt was from the DBQ Project's packet of document-based question. How barbaric were the barbarians? And it gets kids thinking about this term barbarism, this idea of like cultural relativity, and it just gets them looking at a lot of different primary and secondary source documents and starting to play around with use of evidence. And actually, that was kind of my focus skill that I had in my head. I wanted them to all practice using evidence in today's second pop debate argument. So how am I setting them up for success? When they walk into class, there's always typically a written warm-up. That's what I almost always do for a start of class exercise, regardless of what I'm teaching, English or history. And in this case, I'm having them practice what we're going to be doing in the debate. They need to answer the prompt, and then they need to give 3 pieces of evidence. And then while they're doing that, I'm walking around, I'm looking on their screens, I'm seeing how they're going. And then I stopped them for this little instructional sequence that you're going to see. This was basically me kind of putting myself out there. I kind of framed it as, you get to tell me what I'm going to argue, and I'm going to argue right in front of them. And I'm trying to show them in this example just how we can be playful with language and be explanatory with our language. I'm not trying to model perfection, but I am trying to model having fun with argumentation. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so right now, just go ahead and just shut your computer for a second, and let's build a paragraph on the screen, and then you'll go back into it. Don't click submit yet. It should all save just fine. But basically, you're going to tell me what I'm going to use in my paragraph, and my goal here is not to show you a perfect exemplar. It's to give you an example of the type of writing that we're after, and it's going to help us with the pop-up debate because it's also kind of like the argumentation that we're after to make our pop-up debates a little more fun. So first of all, raise your hand if you want me to go barbaric. Raise your hand if you want me to go not barbaric. Okay, all right. Dang. Well, it's going to be interesting to see if that's what you all agree with, because if it is, then I'm going to encourage you guys to mix it up during the pop-up debate, because if we're all on one side, it won't be as fun as if we kind of mix. So I'm going to go barbaric. So the Mongols were, by any standard, a barbaric force in world history in the late post-classical. I don't know actually if that gets capitalized. It probably does. All right. So quickly tell your partner, what are some pieces of evidence that you guys could give me to support this argument? Just 60 seconds with your partner. What are some things that I could put in here? And then I'm going to ask you guys for evidence. I better get my document set out. 20 seconds left. Let's bring it back together. So I'm going to ask Mr. G himself, what's one piece of evidence that I could use to support barbarism? Okay, document 5. And Vinny, what's standing out here to you that is barbaric? Okay. According to an illustration in a Persian epic poem, the Mongols would execute their enemies in elaborate, torturous ways, such as burying them alive. Or, what else is in the picture? Shooting them with arrows while they were tied up. Now, I'm just going to give a brief explanation. I mean, this evidence doesn't need much explaining. This was beyond what was necessary to subdue the Persians. Okay, so there's my first piece of evidence. Now I'm going to go with HV back there, my homegirl, Skillet Biscuit. What you got for me, HV? They don't have any what? A little louder? Okay. So blueprints of what? Okay. All right. So you're saying like with building things or just with like running their army? Okay. All right. I want to go back and look at that HV because I feel like their army was organized. You know what I mean? I'm sure that you're remembering something that he said. Does anyone else remember where he references in here? Okay, Owen, back up here. Yeah, there we go. That's dead on the money. All right, that's dead on the money. So, additionally, they had no master plan for what to do with their empire. So all that's really happening here is, as I said previously, I'm working right in front of them, and also we did have that chance to a student shared something that was a bit inaccurate, but I had faith that she was remembering something, just slightly misremembering it. So we were able to collaboratively arrive at what she meant. So the student that made a mistake got some validation, and the students who attempted to help her also got some. It was a good little ethos seed planter of what we're trying to do, which is to be collaborative as we learn together. It's not about anyone being the smartest or the correct person. It's about all of us becoming deeper in our mastery of world history. So after I was done with that, writing that paragraph, I had them take like 30 seconds to go back in their own writing and just see if they could add any additional color or explanatory power to their paragraph. And I said, this is something that will serve you well as we advance through the course and through the rest of education. So I walk around, look over their shoulders for that, and then we're pretty much ready for the debate. So all that I want to do before the debate is give at least a pointer or two. And what you're going to see me introduce to them are these pointers on the screen. I'm going to talk to them about using evidence. So that's specific to like the content of their speech. But I'm also going to talk to them about voice, which is specific to the delivery of their speech. And I've pulled these things out of my prior knowledge of skills that I know that I want my students to have, skills that I know are really important for later on. But I've also taken them directly from what students said in their post-debate reflections from debate number 1 that we had on Monday. So I'll show you what that pre-pop-up debate pointer instruction looks like, and I'll come back and tell you basically how the debate went. All right, about 30 seconds left on that. Then I'm just going to have you submit what you have. Did good on that warm-up. All right, so go ahead and click submit on that. I want you to have that submitted. And then basically for today's pop-up debate, there's 2 pointers that I want you to think about, okay? Pointer number 1 is when you stand up and argue, and your argument just needs to be in response to this question. So now you can be a bit mixed if you want to be. If you didn't really like having to argue one side or the other in the paragraph, feel free to add more nuance if you want. Or you can just stand up and say they were straight up barbaric, or you can stand up and say they're not barbaric at all. The key is use evidence. And if you don't know how, like to say that, you can just say according to blank. According to Heimler, according to Doc 5, according to the AMSCO, the background essay, use evidence to support your argument. Doesn't need to be big and long. You don't need to have 3 pieces of evidence to get credit today. I'm not saying that. 1 piece of evidence, you're good. The other thing is that a lot of you guys brought up in your post-debate reflection last time is you said it would be nice if we could hear everyone. So the speaking skill I want you to think about today is voice. The idea with voice is it's not like you're yelling, although some of you who are quieter, it'll probably feel like that at first. It's just every word heard. So there's a couple ways to make a mistake with this. One, you can speak just too quiet the whole time. Some of you, though, you'll talk really loud at first, but then what do? Kind of trail off at the end. Really just try to think about your volume today when you're speaking. If you're nervous right now and you're not really feeling super confident, go ahead and just make a note for yourself somewhere on your packet of exactly what you want to say. Give yourself some bullet points right now of exactly what do you want to say today when you stand up and argue for or against or somewhere in the middle about the Mongols being barbaric. Make a note for yourself. What do you want to say? Yes, they were barbaric. No, they were not. Because blank. And that's just something that you can use if you kind of lose your train of thought or something. In third hour, last time, a few students just lost their train of thought while they were standing up. Just totally normal. So notes can help you there. And if you're feeling super nervous, you can just read off your notes. That's legit. Okay, just like last time, everyone's going to speak today. When there's a lull in the debate, I will just call on you, so be ready. I'm going to max speech you at 2 again. Last time I don't think we had any repeaters, but this time maybe we'll have more people talking. So I'm going to max you out at 2 unless I say otherwise. And our goal today is just to have fun, push ourselves, and practice that college skill of participating in a discussion section. Any questions before we start? All right. How barbaric were these Mongolian barbarians? And then the debate began, and oh, what a thing of glory it was. No, it was a regular group of kids having a regular beginning of the year debate, but there were things that were very, very exciting. So before we get to that, to what the kids decided was strong in their performance, what was weak or needed improvement, let's just talk about what am I doing during the debate. I want you to be able to picture this. It's very important what you're doing because you can send signals unintentionally that'll make your students weaker long term. But you can also be doing some things that will really accelerate their improvement. So I'm going to give you the thing that I'm staring at most of the time during today's whole debate, and it is one of my clipboard sheets. So I've blacked out the student names here, but let me tell you what is going on here in this sheet. I'll try to zoom it in. And if you're like, listen to this while driving, don't worry, I'll be descriptive. So you can see in this class right here, I'm putting a check mark next to every student that stands up without being called upon. I'm just curious at this point in the year, what's our ratio there? And I was really impressed by this. A lot of kids stood up of their own volition, even though that's not something that I've emphasized. It's not something that I've like pushed on them. So I think there's just a little bit of an eagerness to do that inside of them, and I'm glad. These slash marks are students that did participate after being called on by me. I'm going to say it a million times. It's not like a negative thing. I don't want to cast any aspersion on that for those kids. It's just something I do to keep the discussion efficient, to avoid like losing momentum. The things that I was keeping track of, one thing was I tried to keep track of like which pieces of evidence students were using. I wanted to get a sense of how repetitive is our evidence use, because for this debate, we had spent a couple of days in class getting ready. They didn't know we were getting ready for a pop-up debate, but they read the document set. It had a big background essay. They watched an instructional video, took notes on that, read a textbook excerpt, took notes on that. So, I mean, there's a lot of different places they could pull evidence. So I wanted to see, are we pulling it from those places? So I kept track of that. I kept track of which side was argued for. And for second hour, or the next class I did this, by the way, I did actually talk to them about the fact that the previous hour had been a bit imbalanced, and I think it led to them having greater balance. Another thing I kept track of is, I would once in a while put a star next to a student name that did something that I thought was really important to point out. So like, I remember this individual, he just really gave a deep explanation for his answer that was sort of exemplary. And this student right here, this double star, I actually wanted to pull him aside after the class and just say, nice job, because he's presented to me as a pretty shy, anxious kid, but he, in this case, stood up really fast in the debate, like early on, and I just wanted to tell him I noticed that. I thought it was cool. The other things, you can see multiple check marks for the kids who spoke multiple times. So this class obviously is a bit more eager to talk. And then at the end of the debate, when I opened the floor, I kept track of how many students took advantage of the open floor. I'll just say something like, okay, open floor, who else would like to speak, and give your last word. So during the debate, I'm keeping track. I'm checking things on this clipboard. I'm also intervening at what I view as strategic points. These are not like pre-planned things, just things that I'm sensing. So one example is in both classes, I interrupted after a clash. So I'm defining a clash as any time that students disagree with one another. This class had a bunch of it, and it was great. This class, it wasn't until about the middle of the debate when we had our first clash, and it kind of felt jarring. So I just stood up and I said, hey, students, I just want to say this is the type of thing that'll make our debate so much more interesting in the future, is clashing with one another's ideas. Notice how both people were very respectful. And I want you guys to start to think of this. Whenever someone clashes with your ideas, it's a compliment. It's a compliment. It's a privilege. It means that they're paying attention to you. They're listening to you. Oopsies. But they're also, that's it. They're paying attention to you. They're listening to you, and that's really cool. So that is kind of what we were going for there, or with me standing up. All right. So that's the during debate action, and then you always want to have at least 5 minutes at the end of class to have the kids brainstorm the post debate reflective pieces. What do we do well? What do we not do well? And I caught a little bit of that on film. So let's go look at that now.
Your partner, please describe something that we did well as a class in this debate and something that we could do better next time. Please go ahead with your partner and do that. By the way, can we all agree, raise your hand if you think we got at least 1% better during that? Absolutely. High improvement. And I'm just encouraged because the first one was only a couple days ago. So for second hour, let's go ahead and hear first what specifically do you?
All right, last thoughts on this pop-up debate before we end the video here. I want to show you what the students came up with in their post-debate reflection. Had some great observations here in terms of strengths. What am I going to work on next time? I think I definitely want to play with eye contact in terms of a delivery skill. And I'm not really sure yet what else I'd like to do. Probably we'll do two things though, because that just keeps them growing rapidly during this initial growth curve. And that is good for their motivation. Speaking of which, let's look at student motivation and what I think is happening with these pop-up debates. So this is the 5 key beliefs pyramid from my most recent book. And you can see there on the bottom, credibility. I do think that when you teach your students how to succeed at public speaking, I think it's a credibility boost. It just shows that you understand that things shouldn't be taken for granted. Things should not be assumed. When you have a sense of what students need to just get a bit better, that helps your credibility. Value, I think, with pop-up debates is built in because there's the social status approach, and it's not necessarily the kids trying to be better than each other, although that will eventually play in, I think, in a good way, in an actual positive way, like a fun way. But it's just the students all can gain a sense of pride from standing up in front of their peers, and for many of them facing fears. In terms of effort and efficacy, I am showing them what good effort looks like with public speaking. I'm having them do the pre-work. And I'm not being explicit and preachy about how this pre-work is why our discussions go as well as they do. I'm really trying to show that, not tell it. But it does help the effort belief, I believe. And of course, every time that we do a pop-up debate, the bar for success is simply participating. And when 100% of the class participates, then you've got success, which is the best way to build efficacy is actually helping students to succeed. And then finally, I'm taking pains to talk to students about how it's normal to be anxious about public speaking, but also if you're college bound, this type of whole class speaking is something that you're going to need to be able to be functional at, and dare I say, even find a way to enjoy. And that's what we're doing. All of us, no matter our current skill level or comfort level, are doing that. And that helps with belonging because it's a normalizing struggle. All right, I think this video has gotten plenty long enough. So last thing I'll say, little piece of advice from my book, These 6 Things. If you're feeling overwhelmed with how much is in these videos, then just start here. This screen right here, take a screenshot. It's in the argument chapter of These 6 Things. You can check it out there if you want more details. But if you want to try this, but you don't want to make it so complicated, just this right here is all that you need to do to make your first pop-up debate a success. All right, take care, colleague. Until next time, I've been Dave Stuart Jr. And please, if you like these pop-up debate videos, just subscribe so that you can see the next one when it comes out. Probably sometime next week, I think, that we'll have our third pop-up debate of the school year.